Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about an INTJ dealing with a structured military life. I was asked in a comment to do a video on living life in a structured military environment as an INTJ, and it struck me as a good idea. Attacking this project led me to realize that I had never thought of it in these terms before. Life in the Navy was like school in a way, and trying to figure out that whole mess. In school, I had learned to carve out a safe space so I could function. In a way, going into the Navy was doing that all over again. It has been interesting for me pulling that process apart and mentally looking it over. I spent a total of 13 years in the United States Navy, and I left the service in the summer of 1988. The Navy was different then in some ways from the way it is today. There were no women serving on combat vessels, and other things have changed as well, but I would expect that there remains a lot of similarities even so. When I entered the Navy, I embraced the concept that it was all a game. Just like chess, there are rules to the game, and my first goal was to learn the rules and then to adhere to them. There was the Uniform Code of Military Justice, commonly referred to as the UCMJ, which more or less replaced the U.S. Constitution for service members. We no longer had the freedom to express our opinions openly on many matters, for example. There were also the Navy regulations, or Navy regs. The aim of the game, for me, was to stay within the rules and remain below the radar generally. I made a point of always doing just what I was expected to do and not drawing attention to myself by messing up. I sought my personal niche where I could operate, doing what I had to do when necessary, and then what I wanted to do the rest of the time. Many times what I wanted to do was to work on my equipment when it was still down after it was time to quit for the day. It depended on the circumstances. I made a point of not trying to cheat the system and following the rules as well as I could. I knew that the Navy system was ingrained deeply and had been constructed over hundreds of years. They had dealt with idiots who thought they could fight the system and were good at squashing such people, either making life so painful that they conformed or railroading them out of the Navy with bad discharges. The Navy doesn't care either way. You will conform or you will be dealt with harshly. I accepted that. I also knew why I was there and what I wanted to accomplish in the Navy. It is important in all things to keep your focus on what you are trying to get done. It is important to most parts of life to have purpose and a reason to be doing what you're doing. Even relaxation has a purpose. What I kept in mind was the fact that what I was doing at the moment would move me closer to my goal. My first marriage was all tangled up with my being in the Navy. First off, my ex-wife had done some things that effectively ended my chances to continue with my college classes. Over the next couple of years, we had a son, and I was working civil service making a barely adequate wage. My ex-wife was eager for more goodies in life, and I wanted to make her happy, so I sought out ways to make more money. The Navy offered to pay me to go to electronics school, and that seemed like the best option, so I joined. My goal was to learn electronics so I could make more money to make my ex-wife happy. What followed from that was that, first of all, I had to get through boot camp and then school. Whatever stupid thing I was told to do in boot camp, I did it. I did it quickly and to the best of my ability without any comments. I didn't take most of the silly stuff seriously, beyond making sure that I did it according to the rules every time. For 11.5 weeks, I was talked down to, told to do demeaning things, called a worm, and worse, and so on. I spent hours on the deck with an eraser, erasing any black marks that might be there. I folded every article of uniform clothing by the book and made my rack up every day just so. The stupidity didn't go away entirely after boot camp, but it decreased greatly. Military life is like a minefield in many ways. You can get through it safely as long as you focus on the little things. But if you lose your focus, you can end up in a real mess. The Navy was more interested in your following orders than whether or not you have a better idea on how to do something. You may be given the chance to make suggestions, or you may not. If not, you do it the stupid way and keep your opinions to yourself. It is how the game is played. Stupidity and incompetence may be in charge. It does happen. When it does, you simply play the game. All things pass in time, even kidney stones and stupid leaders. The game is a game, and as long as you view it that way, you are fine. Ignore idiots who are put in charge as much as you can. A brick wall is more forgiving to your head than is the Navy when you try to fight the system. It is critical to know when to stop pushing. When you know what it is that you are trying to accomplish, it is far easier to get there. In my case, it was to support my family while I acquired the skills that I could sell on the open market once my enlistment was over. As it turned out, my ex-wife left me 6 months into my 6-year enlistment, and it shattered my focus for a time. I regained it, and while the motivation was no longer to make that woman happy, it was still to get my education and reach a point where I could work for a good wage when I got out. But the approach would have been pretty much the same for me, whether I was looking to create a career or to get an education and leave. Learn the rules of the game and play by the rules, and avoid conflicts with those above. I of course had my own personal standards, where any job I set my mind to doing, I wanted to do it well. There were certain things that were present at all commands. There was duty, standing watches, the chain of command, and some tasks that were required of me. These were all part of the game. What was unique was the other stuff. At school, I set my mind to learn all I could, so I'd be ready to use the knowledge later on. In the fleet, I worked hard to understand how to troubleshoot and to learn equipment I would be working on. Forever, the goal was to reach the end of my enlistment with the knowledge and credentials in hand to use in the civilian world. About 9 months after my ex-wife left me, I met my current wife, and once again I had a goal in mind of supporting my new wife. The way I handled the system was to give it what it wanted, and then use the rest of my time to pursue what I wanted. I compartmentalized my life to allow myself to have the freedom to pursue my own interests. I also did my best to do a good job. The Navy was created to defend America, and I was fully behind that aim. It was a balancing act for me the entire time. There were parts of the Navy that I embraced with great eagerness. I loved the learning, fixing electronic problems, and later on I loved teaching as well. I tolerated the drudgery of mundane tasks, and I hated family separation. Events of life caused me to do a second 6-year hitch in the Navy, and that was when I got the training to be a technical instructor. And so it turned out to be mostly a very positive experience for me and my future. I have to give kudos to my wife as well. Being a good Navy wife is a huge burden. As a sailor, you are gone for 6 or 7 months, and she has to deal with the cars breaking down, household emergencies, the kids, and all their demands, as well as simply paying the monthly bills on time. My wife did a huge amount of work, and she was just as enthusiastic to jump into my arms when I got off the ship as I was in taking her into my own. We both served my time in the Navy, and she did so with honor and integrity. When I walked away from the Navy to permanently join the civilian community, I was not at all unhappy at the parting of the ways. I have always preferred civilian life, but the Navy gave me a great deal as well. I am glad I served, but I'm glad that part of my life is over. If you enjoyed the video, please click like, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'll see you next time.